Alright, so some of you might have seen some previews of this over the past couple of months. This is the first Glossy gaming monitor. It's the Eve Spectrum 4K. This is the matte version here and the glossy version right here. And as you can see just on camera, there is a pretty noticeable difference between the two, both in terms of the color vibrance and the depth of the image, and also just like how they're handling the reflections of the room. Now, I will say before we get into it, this comparison right here and some of the comparisons that I'm going to show you, the matte version, when you're looking at it from an angle, it kind of looks worse. If we tilt the monitor like this, you can see that the glare and the kind of depth of the image actually improves. So just keep that in mind. When you're looking at this monitor kind of front on, doesn't look as bad as what you're seeing here on camera. Now, since this glossy monitor is, the first of its kind and it's going to be something that you can actually buy moving forward, I want to share my thoughts and experiences on it so far because a lot of people have been looking forward to this kind of glossy coating on a gaming display, and I kind of just want to outline the details of what you need to know before you go and buy one. Now, the entire goal with a glossy coating is to get a better looking image out of the display. It is also partly due to appearing a little bit more premium, the kind of finish that you'd get on a nice laptop or TV, for example, but improving image quality is the real goal here. And that's because, as the previews so far have shown, the anti-glare coating that is otherwise applied here on gaming monitors is actually fading out the image and almost acting as a filter. Now, the first thing that I did before comparing the two side by side was of course calibrate both displays with a colorimeter, tuning them both to the exact same white point and brightness. That way, I knew any differences in image quality would 100% be down to the coating of the display. Now, a couple of things that I did notice while calibrating the displays: at 50% brightness, the glossy panel was significantly brighter than the one with the anti-glare coating, again, despite them both being the exact same monitor. Although the max brightness that can be achieved with both monitors was surprisingly the same at around 450 nits. I did also notice that the contrast ratio was slightly higher as well on the glossy panel when both had their brightness set to 200 nits, slightly over 1000 to 1, while the matte model was slightly under. The real difference between these displays though can be seen just by looking at them side by side, especially in a medium lit ambient room like this and when displaying a fairly dark image. So both monitors here are set to 200 nits brightness, and in a dark game like Elden Ring, for example, you can definitely see a much more punchy and vibrant image coming from the glossy panel. The shadow areas have a lot more depth to them, and even the brighter areas seem a bit more lifelike and vibrant. When we take a closer look, we can see the exact same thing, and again, I'm not playing any camera tricks here or anything like that. This is literally just a different coating for the display. Glossy just objectively produces a clearer and deeper looking image. Now, there's actually two main things happening here. For one, the glossy coating, as the name suggests, just totally reflects the incoming light as opposed to soaking it up and dispersing it across the anti-glare panel. So in rooms where there's even a little bit of ambient light hitting the panel, that will end up worsening the image quality and creating a slightly more hazy type of look. The glossy panel, on the other hand, well, you'll be dealing with reflections instead, but more on that in just a minute. So again, neither the matte or glossy panel look good when they're reflecting a huge bright light source, but I'd say that for more normally lit setups, the glossy panel can leave you with a better looking image. The second part of this is that the anti-glare coating on the matte panel is independently worsening image quality before we even factor in the incoming light. Here's a look at some text side by side on a white background, and honestly, you can't see a whole lot, but the glossy panel does appear a little bit sharper. It's when we zoom in though that we can really see why we're getting a better image from the glossy panel. The individual red, green, and blue subpixels are not interrupted by any hazy anti-glare filter like they are on your typical matte panel. So it's this in combination with the reflective coating properties that leave you with a better looking image. So if the glossy panel is so much better than the matte panel and image quality is just that much better, then why isn't every gaming monitor company, doing glossy finishes? Because when you think about it, gaming monitors are kind of the odd ones out here. When you think of TVs, laptops, mobile phones, they all use this kind of glossy panel kind of coating. Now, I don't have the answer for you, but I do think if I had to guess, I would say that the matte anti-glare coating is, one, seen as a feature by consumers and by monitor companies, and two, I would say that it's seen as more of a safer, more consistent bet when you're talking about how you're going to use this monitor in a gaming setup. And that last point is something that I would have to agree with, because after using the glossy panel for a couple of days now, and especially into the nighttime when it gets really dark, I would say that, the matte panel is just a much more consistent viewing experience. No matter when you're looking at this panel, you always know what you're going to get, and it's just a little bit more comfortable to use. The reflective panel, on the other hand, throughout different times of the day, depending on what lights I have on and whatnot, it is a little bit more kind of hard to focus on, I will say. Not everyone will agree with me here, and that is totally fine. Some of this is personal preference, but that is my experience so far, and that's probably why I will be sticking with a matte panel moving forward. Now, since this is the first glossy panel that I've used along with my PC, and definitely the first one that I've tried to game with, it's one of those things that I probably need a little bit more time to form a conclusive opinion on. So far, I'll say that neither panel coating is perfect, and I can definitely see the argument from both sides. Glossy does 100% look more vibrant and more sharp, but at the cost of being slightly more distracting when it comes to focus, especially when displaying dark content. And what I'm personally interested to hear is what you guys have to say, in fact, because I'd love to know whether you guys would be keen to switch to a glossy panel down the road. Doesn't have to be a 4K one, but for an esports display, for example, for a 1440p gaming monitor, would you prefer a glossy coating over a matte one and have that trade-off for better image quality, but then actually have the reflections instead? If you are interested in the glossy Eve Spectrum though, I will leave it listed down below. Do keep in mind though, this is a pre-order, which is kind of expected to ship in mid-June. So as always with pre-orders, there is a bit of a risk and do expect some delays. I am told though that LG are the one producing the glossy coating, as they are responsible for the panel itself, so hopefully that means that production will run a little bit smoother. Otherwise, definitely leave your thoughts and comments down below on this one. As always, a huge thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.